And now, from Grid Square Echo Mike 48, this is 100 Watts and a Wire.
Well, hello and welcome to 100 Watts and a Wire, episode 353. This is a podcast for the amateur radio operators. Welcome. I hope everybody's doing all right. For our live stream recording of the podcast, our podcast listeners are invited to join us for this live recording. You can come by and participate or partake in the festivities in the green room. There's a lot of things that happen before the show. People will be like, what is happening? Why do they laugh so much? Well, I think we'd have to sell tickets to that experience. But look, the fellas are here. This is why they're always smiling and laughing. They won't tell you why. I don't know. Steve, what's going on that we don't, everybody's laughing all the time before the show. And then the show starts and it's like,
serious business, just no.
They want the show before the show. That's the thing. But sometimes we say things that probably shouldn't be heard, I guess. Hello, Steve.
What you are seeing is us in our natural state. And so
sometimes you see on the live stream a little bit more than you'd want to see. These brothers will stand up and you're like, damn, I didn't know they still sold those sorts of checkered draws, why can't I get a team of people that care about their underpants? I'll be right back. Let me get up.
Can't afford
wait a minute. Let me just switch off the camera. Dang. Hope everybody's doing all right. Hello, Scotty. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Good to be here this morning. Yeah, we can't talk about, I signed a non-disclosure agreement about the pre-show content. So
there's no way possible.
Can't say anything.
I've thought about it. And, I think we do a very good job of being natural here. But, you got to put up a couple of guardrails for the show because there's a lot of people that are just like, I don't know what the... I had a guy a few months back was like, yeah, I tried to listen to that show. Got on something about talking about something. It wasn't nuts to butts ham radio because we kick it off starting about, saying hello to friends. Like, that's what you would do. Anywhere else is like, hey, fellas, how you doing? How you do? You have a good week? I noticed this was going on. And he was like, you didn't get, it was just got to get right to it. I'm like, it's not for you. Not for you, brother. We actually talk to each other here.
Yeah, it's the one place I could be safe and not have to worry about going into Sherry's office is the pre-show.
That's true. That's true.
It's my safe space. Totally.
The pre-show, we're right. She's not wired into that. It's not going out through a speaker. So, yeah, you hear a little bit more there. Hello and welcome to everybody who are podcast listeners and our community members who come and join us in the chat. If you're new, put new down there. I noticed that Spike got a new call sign. He's now November 1 Alpha Quebec Hotel. Way to go there, Spike.
Nice,
That's a good one there. He also put a Q in front of his question. I appreciate that. Pardon me. We answer your questions. Give you some practical solutions to try to help you reach your amateur radio goals throughout this hour. So if you do have something you want to ask about anything, really, it's a community full of people living a life, but rooted in radio. So we're not afraid to tackle any sort of thing. 420 came along this week, and it's my father's birthday. So I remember my father on 420. We also have a lot of brothers and sisters who use that 420 number as a smoking up the weed, the herbs, the medicinal and whatever sort of medicines they enjoy. That's all good. Everybody's welcome here. Unfortunately, Steve, one of these cases, had a horrific evening because of was it a 420 celebration, Steve, that caused this?
He was on a speed run. He was from the Spokane area and made a speed run to Tacoma and was making a speed run back. And we're all kind of scratching our heads. It's like, well, you got dispensaries in Spokane, so don't know, but he was driving a little bit too fast. And
so speed run, do you mean he was en route to pick up something or other that may have not been good, or he was just flying?
En route. He was heading back, so he did the cannonball run to go. Let's put it this way: it was remember the old Burt Reynolds movie? They
Smoking the Bandit,
the beer.
Oh,
Smoking the Bandit. Yeah, so it was instead of being eastbound and down, he was eastbound and down and loaded up
Out.
in trucking, but
He was loaded and down and out.
and he was baked.
That's a
was,
shame.
uh,
That's a
like,
shame.
you
You know,
know,
that's just
But yeah, it was.
poor weed management. I'd say he should be violation for poor weed management is like the number one
planned
violation.
ahead.
There. Should have planned ahead. Should have waited,
Those
And-
gummies will creep up on you.
waited and baked. That's what he probably should have
Needed
done.
some. Yeah.
Yeah, he probably needs some now. Like not to get too graphic, but you cut somebody out, and you had to cut somebody out of the car.
Yeah,
In
we
this
had
accident.
we had to extricate.
On
one
a serious tip,
person.
y'all, be careful out there. Like we play
Wear your
around, like
seatbelts.
wear your seatbelts, man. Be smart with what you're doing. We're not trying to preach to anybody, but you can do whatever you want to do, But when it's business time to get across, man, don't risk other people's lives for what you do. You do at home is good, or get somebody else. But here we are now giving out advice about how to ingest your medicinal uses. There's a question from the chat. We can probably hit this one quickly, but thank you for putting the Q in front of it. If you have other questions, please go ahead and do that. We're here to help and provide support for you. We've got a topic today we are going to talk about, and we'll get to that in just a little bit, but it's a question about club participation and why it seems like a small percentage of the people do a large percentage of the work. And if you guys feel that in your clubs, we're not out to get anybody and crap and throw shade or whatever they say anymore, but just to see what you see in your club. Some do better than others, and some are having this issue, and it's a problem. And I hear about it more, and I'm like, yeah, we'll talk about it. Anyway, there's a question from Spike, and he asked, is there a pre-show production rider, like the band concerts? So, yeah, we could probably guess what's on Scotty's rider. He will not come here unless there is a set amount of things. But there's a handful of his items that he has to have in his dressing room, if you will. And then Steve is just outrageous. I'm just going to say it publicly that his demands are the dumbest things I've ever seen. I mean, I love this guy. But who asked on a technical rider for a goldfish? A goldfish, not like the crackers, a real swimming goldfish. I'm like,
I gotta have my
okay,
goldfish.
but why? I mean, it's cheap enough. Water's free, the bowl, glass, couple bucks. All right, fine. But who asked for the goldfish? And I don't understand why you asked for a live, living, swimming goldfish. And I'm not sure I want to know. Stand by, Sherry. But let's find out why Sidecar Steve needs a living goldfish.
I need inspiration, and the goldfish inspires me.
See, you get inspiration from, that's a good answer. That's enough for me. That's probably pretty good. But all these, yes, Spike, they come in, they have certain needs. You can imagine. One guess now for our chat, what would Scotty need to have in his dressing room prior to every show? Put it in the chat right now. And if we get 3 of them, then we'll have to hand out some of them later. So go ahead and put in the chat what you think Scotty needs in his dressing room. But yeah,
That'll be good.
that'll be good. Go ahead and type it up in there, and we'll share it as we go. And if you have any questions about anything during this process or any comments, go ahead and put them down in the chat. You're invited here, our listeners, to come for the live recording. It doesn't live on YouTube. It is streamed out so we can participate and be with you in real time. And it goes right out to audio, and then it goes away from YouTube. And sometimes we even do an extra, little bit extra after the show. We hang out, that sort of thing. All right, so we're going to find out what Scotty needs in his dressing room in just a moment. So, Steve, we put this question out there. I put it out over each week I try to put something out on the Discord. Discord's slowly growing, so participation on Discord, it's interesting, is a lot lower than, say, Facebook, where 97 people had a comment about this question, and it was about our radio clubs. It all came to be because I know a guy, and I've heard others say, they get you see him at a ham fest, like, you're the president, you're the vice president or treasurer. Nice event. Thanks for putting it on, all that sort of thing. And it's like, I just wish more people would help. You know, it's like I got to do everything. I asked the guy, I won't use his name or call just to keep him, on the clear because he's more active still. Are you going to re-up again and to be the president again? And it was like, no, I can't do it. It's so much work that I have to do, and just a few people do this work. And so it wasn't me saying, hey, let's start a feeding frenzy about this. I just want to see if this was something you had seen in your clubs. Steve, you had an interesting perspective on this, and I think it was a theme throughout the answers. What's your thought on a little bit of people doing a lot of the work?
And that's typical. That happens in a lot of organizations, not just radio clubs. It goes beyond radio clubs and other organizations, and it's basically I'll just kind of put under one big tent, volunteerism, and you're gonna have 10% of a group of people, no matter what organization it is, that's going to be really active. You'll probably have another 10% that is semi-active. So you'll have anywhere from 10 to 20% that are pretty much doing most of the work, and then the rest are kind of hanger-oners, or they just can't participate as much as they want to. It's just the nature of the beast. But it's true. About 10%, whether it's radio clubs or any other organizations, is going to be really, really active. That's going to do the majority of the work, and it just that's the way it just falls out. And it's it is what it is.
All right, hold on.
100 watts and a wire news.
This just in from our community in the chat room. Many folks are saying that gummy bears, loaded gummies. Paul said loaded gummies, a pound of gummy bears from James. Bare Bones Bears from Spike. So for some reason, lots of people believe that the green room must be full of gummies. For Scotty,
we'll give them that idea.
What says you, Scotty? Yeah, I don't understand where that's all coming from.
It's all news to me.
It's a bizarre thing. Scotty, you in any clubs and without getting yourself in any kind of trouble, what do you see participation like?
Well, yeah, I do. I am a member of my local club. I don't really go to the activities. They do a lot of Aries Racy stuff. In fact, I got an Aries Racy's exercise going on today on the 2-meter repeater. I had to turn my 2-meter rig off because they were chiming through. But it's always in the newsletters and the events they have coming up. It's always seems to be the same handful of people that are organizing, that are getting out there and participating and trying to drum up volunteers to come participate. And turnout's usually pretty low. And like Steve was saying, it's the same small group of people doing everything for whatever events they have planned for the day or for the year.
It's kind of rough. We head over now to our whoopsie-doo. We go off of that. That's our.
Hey, I recognize that.
Hey, that's our run-up show. I asked the folks here, 97 comments, 3.4 thousand, 3,400 people had seen the post. 94 decided that they were going to comment on it. So just to go through, David says something. It's been this way since he started in 1980. Bigger problems nowadays is that people don't want to join organizations at all. What do you make of that, Steve? People just are not interested in even joining clubs.
Yeah, I mean that's another issue. It's why people don't want to join, or they're afraid that if they join, they're going to get roped into doing something. Don't want to be, and they want to be that 80% that doesn't want to do anything. They just want to be there, and they're afraid of getting sucked into being part of the 20%. Or people's lives are so busy and we got so many distractions that it's they don't have the time. So I don't know, what the end goal is, why someone doesn't want to join up, and I can understand it. We're busy. Everybody's
super busy. Everybody's busy. So you hear family, your work. Those are probably the two leading reasons. I won't call them excuses, but reasons. And, a lot of great comments here. I encourage our community, if you do Facebook at all, you probably don't even have to join to read these, but they're all there. They will be there. If you do a search under community questions, all of the questions that we ever talk about have come up, and we can't get to all of the answers. Thomas said, that's why I quit. So, this engagement, we've got ourselves a little bit of a cycle here, Steve, where, all right, so we have 10%, just saying 10, 15%. We just give it, even 20%. It's definitely not even half. So we're just going to cover it by saying less people do a lot of the work. And we'll define work as, say, throwing events, say whether it's field day or it's a cookout or a simplex study or whatever the thing may be, some sort of operating event for the club. A dinner.
Organizing an event, whatever, or just the everyday running of the club.
Taking tickets, taking membership, keeping track of that, getting people interested in running. This is what we're talking about, the work of it, right? And it's not a guilt trip because, look, I may give money to clubs, but it doesn't mean I'm there solving their problems for them. I'm not setting up in chairs and breaking down the chairs. This is more of a conversation about, we have this issue of cultivating new people into the hobby to start with. And there's potentially a lot of young leaders or new blood leaders type, you don't have to be 25 years old. You could be in your 50s and want to be leading and help out, So I think there's a really balance here that we've got to figure out with leadership in the clubs to recognize some of these younger people, guys usually, and letting them pick up the rope and give some ideas every now and again, because it's clearly on people's minds, and people are quitting it. They're quitting because of it. Well, you may quit leadership because of it. Most people just want to go to the party. They want to go to the breakfast. They want to send out the emails to the, or they don't want to send out the emails to the whole club. That organization, coordination, that type of stuff. Mike says, "Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Steve. Go ahead."
Well, then the other problem is that comes down to is you have the ones that don't participate or are not active. They're at the meetings every month, and they're in that 80% group, and they sit back and they're taking shots from the cheap seat. Well, that's the way we didn't do it that way 30 years ago, and they're just stirring it up and putting in their 2 cents, and then it's like, well, if we're not doing it the way it should be, why aren't you? And then they have an excuse to not be in it. They'll criticize, but they won't be part of the solution, and so that's discouraging to someone that's trying to do the best for the organization, and then get constantly criticized, and so on top of doing all this work. Trying to do what they think is best and feeling like they're not getting support from the senior members of the organization because they're sitting back in the cheap seats, taking cheap shots at the leaders, and then the rest of us are not telling them to shut the hell up and let these guys run it, and if you don't like it, then we'll vote your ass in and you can run it the way you think it should be. But so, there's a lot of things that are that kind of culminates into where we are today. So
a good point from Patrick in our chat here today. He says, haven't been a member of a radio club in probably 6 years. After I moved home after school, I had bigger things to worry about. I still do plenty of public service. So, he's still out there doing and volunteering, but he's not a member of the club. And here's a point. If I give money to the club, is that enough? You know what I mean? Like, that's an energy. It's a form of energy. It's a support. And, I hope they can go and work it out and they can use it and that it's helpful. But I'm definitely one that's not super engaged. Anyway, let me get back to what the people think. Tommy says everybody wants to be an EC or AEC, but don't want to do anything. He's got Kilo Foxtrot 4 Tango Charlie. Again, I'm not trying to stir the pot strangely here and get people upset about this whole thing. It's not about us against them or them and them not doing anything. And there's just different interesting perspectives. And there's newer hams who kind of look at things and they're like, whoa. that kind of stuff. John says, I guess it depends on how you define the work. We have a very active club. We always have a good size group for field day. We've done winter field day for a few years. We have a group of operators who go out and do POTA activations once a month. We do annual 2-day ham fest, 2 small swap meets a month. That sounds like a good happening, active
Wow, that's a
club.
lot of work too.
He says, of course, there are a number of members that aren't active, but when we put out an appeal for people, we always get a good turnout. He's AA4JS, so good for you. That's good.
That's great. That's an awesome club. That's a lot of work. Two ham fests a month. Wow.
All right. Should we take a question here from David from the chat? I mean, you guys can put a Q in front of it, and we're just going to run it out here. This is a friendly group. It's a community, and when you have community issues, you talk about it. You should talk about it. It's better than harboring and what are they, fostering or festering? That's the word I'm looking for. So David asked, so how do you gently break down the expert in the club that simply isn't willing to teach newer folks his or her expertise? Or can you? Need that shrink back respectfully. So how do we get through these older heads?
He wants to not gently break them down because they won't get the subtlety of, the nudge and say, hey, kind of some of those guys you have to get in their grill and tell it like it is. And
what is sad about things is I've had conversations and people write me and I always welcome it. And I have to be careful what I put back out there because next thing you know, it's going to go out to some other place and get people upset about something. But, when people start talking about we just have to wait for this older generation to die off, what a sucky thing to have to say. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel that way. Like, wow, there must be a way in to sitting down and talking to the kind of, they're called the gatekeepers, they're called the old guard, whatever they're called. I call them our elders, the mentors that we desperately need and that they're dying off. And I hate that there's a thought out there that we have to wait. We got to wait till these old guys die off before we can get our thing going. And that's sad, isn't it?
That's a frustration that, newer people have. It's because they're not getting out from us older guys what they're craving and the guidance. And it's like they finally they're throwing the towel in and just saying the heck with it, and we'll just wait for the old fart to move on.
Ben says they see the other way around where they're willing to teach but no one wants to learn. I definitely feel that there's also a side of this, and we have many shades to this hobby and this service, that it's many layers, colors, whatever you want to say. But sometimes the wisdom of the old, they can't give it away, and that's probably going to depend on where you are.
And I've ran into that quite a few times. It's like, oh, okay, all right, you don't need, and it's not just here in the hobby. It's in my work profession. Mm-hmm. Some of the newer guys, the younger guys come in, and they kind of like think they know it all, and it's like some of my kids. It's like, okay, all right, no problem. You'll figure it out.
We'll pick this up here as we continue. You're welcome to put your comments down, put your questions out there, and all that sort of stuff. Let's talk about this week in radio history, baby. On 4/25/1945, Steve, you and I were just sandbox kids back then. Right. The final transmission of the clandestine radio, 1212, AK Radio Luxembourg, a black propaganda, quote, black propaganda station under U.S. control during the end of World War II. We can put more about that in our show notes on 100wattsinawire.com. Anything that we talk about that has a site where you can go and reference it, you can see it all there. And Marconi's birthday, 4/25, it's coming up on Monday. Marconi was born in 1874, so simple math, he would be 62 years old today. Don't let me do your math and taxes. 1874. Somebody will figure out that math. They're very good at that. Let me tell you about LDG, baby. Family owned and operated. They got the ballons, they've got the onions, and I find that people really still don't understand ballons and onions. And Steve and I will run back a ballon and onion show before too long. But they've got analog meters, and of course, the world famous tuners. Customer service second to none. Visit them online at ldgelectronics.com. Everywhere you look, there's an LDG, and you know what? You can now get LDG hats and mugs. We came to a lovely arrangement in our merchandise section at 100wattsandwire.com. So if you dig LDG, got cups and stuff and a hat in there too if you want to check that out. All good. They support our show and have for a long time, so we appreciate that. That was an easy yes for us. Okay, we better bring Scotty in to see if anybody's talking in the chat about anything we need to get a hold of, because I lost track. What's going on in there, man?
Not much going on. Greg says, not sure if it will work, talking about trying to get the more experienced folks in the club to kind of coach and encourage newer members, but maybe appeal to their ego somehow and to try to get through to them.
I think
give them a chance to show off how smart they are.
There's something with it comes up, and I'm not trying to poke the bear. I'm a no-code ham, and I have to admit, I would have learned and did what I wanted to do, because my love for this would have forced me to do it, right? I would have done it. It wasn't required of me. I didn't do it. If I had to pick up the back of a Volkswagen, I probably would have tried to do it. Hernia is still there. I get operated on the 4th, but somebody asked me about that, so thank you. But look, if you had to turn over, dig a tree, plant a hole, fix a pothole, you would do that, and I would have done the code if I could have. But when they removed that, that became such a big deal. And I think that's such a big carryover from the guys who had to do it. Like you, Steve, the guys who had to do it, not you included in this conversation because you're open and welcoming to people. But a lot of those dudes, ironically, are bitching about it on single sideband. They're not banging it out. Another thing. They're talking about it on the, so it's kind of a strange thing. But they never really came out of that. There's a big group of people that sort of resent the fact that they didn't have to, had to do something that we didn't. Go ahead, speak about it, Steve.
Oh yeah, no, it's you see it everywhere. There's these guys that's you're not a true ham because you didn't do the CW, and it's like, go F yourself. It doesn't matter. It's the way I see it is, you pass the test based on the requirements that were presented to you at the time you took the test, and whether it had code in it or not, who cares? It doesn't matter. It does not matter. So these guys, they get all hung up on it. And, when I took my test, I had to, when I first got into the hobby, I had to go down to the FCC office. And there's guys saying, well, you're not a true ham until you went down to the FCC office and you had to do it that way. There's VEs, that's a bunch of yada, yada, yada. But no, the requirements when we first had amateur radio, you had to draw out schematics of oscillators. There was a lot of requirements, and over the years, it's gotten streamlined. It's changed. All the requirements have changed, and then eventually the code went away. It wasn't needed. It was an international agreement. It wasn't by the FCC, and it's just like, oh, cool. One less thing they have to deal with. But you know what? You passed the test based on the requirements that were presented to you at the time you took your test. You're done. You're licensed. You have your ticket. I don't care. It doesn't matter. And just because I had to take the code doesn't make me any better than you because you didn't take the code. So
I wonder if, just to tie it together, some of these people are sitting at the tops of these clubs. And, that's part of the problem with connecting and identifying with the newer generation of ham radio operators. It shouldn't, but it probably does to some degree. That's why I brought it up. There are two very different arguments for why, and we can't solve all the problems today. And you can't change a lot of old folks' minds. Mine included, on a lot of things. But you can reasonably get there, I don't know, for the hobby's sake. Like, if you really love it, like you say you love it, then can't we open it up a little bit more? Can't we and then maybe maybe there's an underlying thought here that maybe if we're just a little more welcoming and inclusive in our clubs, giving a hand up to the next generation, we might be able to do something here. But I don't know. I don't want to rant. Here. Anyway,
No, it's one of those things that just drives me nuts, and it's like, come on, guys, it's enough.
I'm getting ready to throw it to Scotty to talk about the contest. And contests are another one. They hate it. And I heard
It's a
some
love-hate
guys,
relationship. Yeah.
they were bitching about the parks. They were like, oh, these park stations. I'm like, why? Like they complain if there's nobody on the air, nobody's using it, right? Instantly, all the bands must be sucky because nobody's on. And then the contests come along, and then they blow their mind. And then now I'm hearing like the parks, which is actually a pretty cool way to get out and get active. So I don't know, man. It's a lot of. I don't want the old generation to die off. I just wish they were a little, I don't know, a little more forgiving or something. I don't know. You ready for some contest, Scotty? Let's see what we got going on this weekend.
All right, let's take a look here with the contest. We have the 1010 International Spring Digital Contest put on by the 1010 International organization based out of California. They are dedicated to making 10 meters the best it can be, and they're having a digital contest this weekend. What else is happening? We have the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps contest. This contest honors the alliance between Australia and New Zealand. It's a worldwide contest, and those are the kind of the two big ones going on this weekend. Have a couple contests lined up for next weekend. There's the Florida QSO party on April 30th. And then those of you guys that are into Feldhell, which is, I always found those old machines to be very fascinating, the mechanical devices. There's the Feldhell Sprint is happening on April 30th as well.
Beautiful. Do you guys want to open up the phone lines? We could actually have people come in here and I guess they could tell us what they think. You want to do that, or is that dangerous?
Yes.
Some of these old folks, man, it's going to be dangerous. That's how we like to live. I'm going to put the key under the mat. If you want to come in here in the last half hour, ask a question, give a comment, you're good. Check your audio level so we have a decent experience for our listening audience. But I'll put the key for you in the chat if you want to come over. Maybe we can drop it into Discord as well. I don't know. We'll see how easy we can do that. Okay. So, yeah, not to poke the bear, not to get too crazy with all that sort of stuff. But I don't think we can solve it. I don't want people to die off, so we can do something more. We should be looking at succession plans, and I don't know, the term limits of the club leadership. I'm not now, now I'm kind of thinking like, man, you kind of sound like you're blaming the leadership, and that's not necessarily true. I think it's just the engagement of the people who are not helping leadership. Leadership actually shows some signs of wanting to be involved, but to be pulling more of the weight, to be the one that's at home sitting at the dinner table after hours working on things. So it's not a knock on leadership. It's more of a, what do we need to do it? Your thoughts are welcome. Put them on in the chat there. Hello to John. We see Ben there as well. Don, good morning to everybody who's come by to hang out with us. Pastor Joe, he says he took the 100 question test for the GROL, GROL. What's that mean again, Steve? I forgot.
General radio operator license.
Right. Circuit diagrams with tubes. What's wrong with this circuit? There are 17 things wrong with the circuit. Only 4 choices on the test. Okay, so he's here as well. He's hanging out. Hello to James.
B plus was probably tied to ground.
James, we're thinking of you. He's got a fire happening where he is. He had to move from his home and pack up his family and go. And he's in this unfortunate situation where he does not know what's going on at the home, at least what damage they will return to, but hopefully in the next couple of days. So our thoughts are with you, James. That is a
yes.
terrible, terrible thing. And as a firefighter, Steve, you probably know this firsthand. When people are forced to evacuate and go out, that feeling, many don't want to.
Oh, yeah.
And just the fear of what it's like.
And what we go through when we... so we go and do structure protection on homes, and in these wildland fires, and there's times when we just have to cut and run, and essentially, and walk away from it. And some people don't, and James will probably know him. Some of his neighbors probably don't set up their homes to be fire, resilient. They'll have a bunch of debris, piled up against the house, and not have a clear space from between the structure and the natural vegetation, and it ends up we just kind of have to write it off, and there's it just it weighs on me and my crew, and it's like, oh, we got to write this one off, and so it's to the homeowner and everything. I feel your pain, James, really do, and that whole situation is just is not good. It started as a prescribed burn, and which we need to do, but sometimes it's things get out of hand, and they didn't. I can't armchair quarterback this thing, but it just sounds like it didn't go well, obviously. So
thinking about you, I know that doesn't do too much for you, but we were definitely thinking of you, and as a member of the community, we're following along James's progress. If you're part of the Discord group, you're seeing that at least support for one another in our community. That's rough, but we're thinking about you there and hoping for the best in your situation and family. So I got to tell you, we did a 30-day review on Tuesday, and we get the most interesting people are reviewing. It's very simple. You go to 100wattsandawire.com, you have a 100-watt ID, or you register for one, and in a couple of days, you're sequentially issued that, right? Then you can go over to the 30 days review system and say, I want to be part of this. Read about it. But essentially, the show will purchase ham radio products or ham adjacent products, send them to you, you review them for 30 days, beat them up, drop them in the mud, whatever you do, come back and tell us about it. That way our community knows what's going on, what's good, what's bad. I don't know. So anyway, this week, Ben, KX4TQ, and Brett. Brett is here, and I can't remember Brett's call sign offhand, but
it's WY7BG.
See that? This is why I got a team here. I'm getting to the point I can't remember. And they're like, hey, we got you. Thank you, Feldman.
I remember because it's his initials, and Wyoming.
Oh, right. Super smart dude. It's fun, and we were hanging out, and I got to tell you, like, everything, there was like a different feeling about recording that show of seriousness. Like here, we get HR calls, no, it's a little questionable. You're going down the wrong road. I don't know. And it sets off a little code here. So anyway, I'm watching and we're going through this. And the next thing you know is we're talking about an HT, a Yaesu HT, right? So I'm like, everything I said, because Ben was here and in the chat, so I'd go to Brett and I'd say, so let's talk about the form factor. How did it feel in your hand? And I see Big Ben fall out laughing, and I'm like, oh, he's thinking about a Johnson right now. Like, and then it's like, how big's the whip? Laughter. I'm like, I can't even go over to him now because for some reason that show takes on a different meaning. It needs to have a level of seriousness, and I don't know why. But really, I guess Sherry isn't there when I'm recording and it's back. Nobody's going live, so. But she would have been because I couldn't stop myself. How's it feel in your hand? Is it big? Do you like it? How's the tip of the antenna? Like all this, and he's just falling out laughing. And then I have to go to him and get his response, and all I see is his shoulders are shrugging. And this is going out on the audio podcast. He's laughing, his body's big and shaking, and I'm like, Ben, you're a big man, and tell me about how it feels in your hand. All this was going on, and Brett was straight as an arrow. He's like serious business giving this review, like Consumer Report. But our boy Ben, Big Ben, has he started to bring Sherry into. So now that's going to be a new thing I've got to meet with Sherry about. Do I need to be there when you record on Tuesday nights in the studio? Because things get a little weird You talked about a glow-in-the-dark tip. That's what he did. He came on talking about his antenna has a glow-in-the-dark tip. And I'm like, oh, geez, here we go. So sorry about that, Sherry. But that's good. It's almost time for our questions. Some come in throughout the week, and we pull those, and I present those to Steve. He doesn't see them. Your Q, you put a Q in front of your question here in our live show, and we'll get to that as well. I do have we got some Ham Fest we want to talk about. Maybe we need to do those, Scotty. There's a few of those, and then we'll go into our Q&A, but give the people a little bit of time to put a question. Doesn't matter. If you want to know where Sherry came from, the HR department, where the show's going, it doesn't, not going to the Museum of Broadcasting is what I can tell you. There's some Hamfest and special events happening, and Scotty's here to talk about those.
Yeah, we got some back in my neck of the woods. And in the Hagerstown, we have the Great Hagerstown Hamfest in Boonesboro, Maryland, happening on April 30th. Also in the same general area, the York Hamfest up in Spring Grove, Pennsylvania, also on April 30th. The Ozaki Radio Club, their annual Spring Swap Fest in Cedarburg, Wisconsin. Their Hamfest is on the 30th. And then we have a cool kind of DX station. I saw you, Christian, made some contact with JWOX in Svalbard.
Right. I have no idea where that is, but yeah, I did. I got that guy.
That is a group of islands in the on the Arctic Ocean, off the north coast of Norway, Norwegian island group.
Nice.
It's also an island on the air entity, EU026. So apparently they're getting huge pileups. They've logged like upwards of 20,000 QSOs in the few days they've been up. I think they're running to the end of to the 26th. They're wrapping it up April 26th. So grab them if you can. It's a good DX.
Yeah, I put him on 20 and put some watts behind it, and I got him. He was working split too, which is, it's always a challenge, because I'm like, I haven't worked split in a while. I need to kind of go back into my rig and like, how am I working split again? So that was a good one. That was new for me. I hadn't picked up that entity before. I had no idea. I looked it up and I saw the thing and I saw the information, but we'll put the link here. Scotty pulled the link to their website, and we'll put those in the show notes on 100 Watts and a Wire. So that's
nice to see a DXpedition out there. Yeah,
for sure. Good deal. It's time for us to head into some Q&A, some questions for you. You're welcome to drop them in the chat right now. Benefit of our podcast listening audience that is around when we record this live stream. You can come in, participate, and actually direct the show as you go. If you want to bring topics in, conversation, whatever you want to talk about. And I'll put the key there because we kind of do a little meet and greet. It's been after the show. We've hung out for a little bit. But I'll put the key under the mat, and if you want to come by and say hello, great. If you have a question, put a Q in front of it. And here we go with this week's question. Steve does not see these ahead of time. He does not want to. So if you stump him, and we'll go back to the chalkboard and stop the chump. I don't think we try to, yeah, but we'll go back and research anything we don't know. I don't know we're in that space right now. This question, what is the best coax to use for a dipole, and would connecting multiple lengths affect transmission output? That's from Steven.
Well, the best, that's always the hard question. What is the best? But so it will come down to what band you're operating, and how long is the run going to be? Is it going to be 100 feet, 300 feet? And is it, 75 meters, or is it 10 meters? So probably the best coax is going to be the one you can afford, obviously. And it's going to be look at the frequency that you're operating on and how long your run is going to be, and then do you want to, you're going to have loss, so you're going to lose power from the time it leaves your transmitter to the time it gets to antenna. If if it's acceptable to lose 10 watts between the transmitter and the antenna, then so be it. Use that coax. So there's a number of things that factor into it. So it's going to be how much it's going to cost, which is our biggest factor. Two is going to be your length of coax is going to be determine which one you're going to purchase and use. Now, multiple lengths of different coax, or I got a 50-foot section of RG8, and then I got another 25-foot section of RG213. Yeah, they're the same. I'm going to be operating on 40 meters. That'll be fine. There'll be the losses. There won't be any loss or very, 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 very little loss at your barrel, and so that shouldn't be a problem. The problem you'll end up getting into is if you mix and match different types of coax. So if you go from a 50 ohm coax to a 75 ohm coax, then you're going to have some issues. But multiple lengths of the same kind of coax is not a problem. Not at HF. VHF, UHF, that's a different story. But, but we're just strictly talking HF right now.
I remember my early days, and I'm sure I asked you a similar question throughout, because I had 213. This was something that Dr. Bob told me. 213 is what he used. Next thing you know, I'm programmed. That's what he uses. Military grade. You can bury it. That's what I need. $1 a foot. Oy, oy, oy. But it's good stuff, right? But I had mixed lengths. I had to go up 50 feet. I didn't have all one piece running. Maybe that's and I said, I got a couple going to put together. What happens at the barrel? And I was really surprised that at that connection point there was not going to be anything. It was just like a solid connection and didn't have to worry about it. I was like, cool. Didn't know.
At HF, that's really not a problem. When you get into the higher frequencies, then it can be if you ran a TDR'd it, or you swept it with some sweep gear, you'll see a bump there, and you'll get some additional losses. It's more sensitive at the much higher frequencies, but in the HF world, nah, you won't see it.
All right, I hope that helps you. My son lives in a townhouse and only has access to a second floor balcony. I'm thinking the only option is a mag loop, and even that may be a little bit sketchy. Your thoughts?
Sketchy as far as being visible, that neighbors will see it, or or there's just not enough room on the balcony for, say, like the ceiling above it. But it should be. I think that's a great antenna for a situation like that. And now if it becomes where it's a visible issue that someone sees it, but it could raise some questions. But I mean, a lot of people put some crazy stuff on their balconies, and I don't know if people complain about it or not. I mean, from what I've seen driving around in my town, and some of the stuff that the college kids put on their balconies in the apartments, because we're in a college town here, and I don't ever hear about people complaining about it, but I don't see it. But yeah, I think it'll be fine. If it becomes a big eyesore, then maybe you might have to go a little more stealthy if that becomes the issue. So I'm a little taken back on, it may be a bit sketchy. And
Brad is here. I think this is Brad's question. I probably pulled
sketchy.
that.
In performance.
In performance.
Okay. Yeah,
I think the only thing performance-wise, I think the only kind of pain is going to be the fact that you've got to tune every frequency with the magnet loop, and so that's kind of a different issue. That's a different thing. But performance-wise, you can still get 100 watts out of these things. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there've been performance-wise, I think they do better than some of the other portable antennas, but they're so narrow as far as you got to get out there and tune them, and if you have a way to remote tune them, that's even better. But
if you're chasing in a contest, this probably isn't something that's going to put you over the top, but it's not. Again, it's not insurmountable. It's something you just have to get used to. You've got a little box you've got to kind of get to your sweet spot on that antenna. And
Well, it's like the Isotron antenna. It's a pretty narrow antenna. It has its kind of its sweet spot, and then you kind of have to get out there and tune it. So I think the mag loop works really well, and I think it will do good. Performance wise, you're whether it's a mag loop or a couple of ham sticks and a dipole configuration on a balcony, you're going to have some issues with the metal and around the structure there. But I think the mag loop is probably the easiest, the better performing of the two. But
they have commercial
you're
models, and you can also build those. And I think when you get about 20 feet up in the air, you can take it from being the circle to being more of a more horizontal. So it's kind of pointing out this way. So aesthetically, that may be all right too. And performance-wise, once you get up higher, you go from sitting it on a tripod in a big circle to being able to put it out more of a horizontal to do better. But I've known people that have done well. I've made contacts on one from the middle of the country to the East Coast, like up in the Northeast part. So it's possible. They're not cheap on the market, though. I mean, even MFJ has one, and it's at least, I think, $600. So it depends if you want to build it, if you're handy, but it'll work. That's the kind of thing, is it'll work.
it'll definitely work. It'll go.
I hope that helps. If you have a question, put a Q in front of it here in our chat. We have a couple coming in. We'll get to those. Let's get to ones that we didn't get to last week. Uh-oh, what'd you go?
Well, a whip clamp to the railing would be, will work too. So yeah, that's another option. So I mean, there's plenty of options there for second floor balconies, and like I said, you can go with they make a mount. MFJ makes a mount where you can take two ham sticks, and it basically makes it a dipole for that band. So if you want to operate on 20 meters, you get a couple of 20-meter ham sticks and screw them into the mount, and away you go. So there's a lot of options out there, or just clamp a single ham stick, or then there's also another mount that you can clamp, like it has attachments for 5, so you can clamp
Right,
that.
the octopus or whatever they call it.
A porcupine of multi-band antennas.
I spoke to
So,
Brad a little bit about this, and I think the concern is one of the concerns was the price point of that antenna. The market on the market, you're looking at about 500 or 600. I know now that we know it's Brad's question that his son's studying, and it could be off-putting to think that your first antenna needs to be $500 to $600, and that's all true. But I like this little ham stick idea too, because that's what is it, $20 for a ham stick? The mount might cost you more.
$40, yeah.
The mount probably costs more. The actual teeth that grab onto whatever, that mount actually probably costs more than the antennas itself. And it might be a little pain to change them out, but that's a lot cheaper. You're talking several $100s cheaper just to try it. So if you can work the angle that, like, hey, let's see if this works. Let's see if we can actually make a contact. Then, Brad, you can take and set up in our Discord some people to listen for you and make the contact happen, where it's kind of cool, and just take the approach of like, hey, man, let's just see if we can take this really weird thing and, put it into this mountain and see what we can do with it, and take that kind of different approach. So you're not like, we're going to work the world on this. It's like, let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can hit a different state, and then use the community to kind of set those up. I kind of like that idea than going full $600 into that mag loop, which is really pricey, even a Christmas gift. If I had one to pass on, I would, but
have you seen that one from Italy? The Italian mag loop?
The huge one that
shows up-
does... Oh, yeah. That thing looks like something
That
you should see at
multi-$1,000
NASA.
one, and it's freaking big in diameter on the tube, and it's like,
That's a penthouse apartment. See, that's a New York City penthouse. That's where you put that one. I don't even know how you'd get it up
that
there.
one's
but
remote tuning.
Holy heck.
So, yeah, because it physically, so it has, if you've never seen it, it has these plates and they come together, and I'm describing as I'm just basically got my fingers spread out and then just sticking my fingers in and out.
Jesus. We go all this way. How many minutes we went? 54 minutes, and he's got to get his fingers in the pie, so to speak. Go ahead,
yeah,
Steve.
my fingers are in the pie.
I appreciate you explaining it for our podcast listeners.
And it's basically, it's like a variable capacitor. And what they do is they physically move this big honking antenna. They're expanding and contracting it, and to tune the antenna, it's the capacitor on it. But this antenna is massive. It's like 6 or 8 feet in diameter. It's just huge, and you see it every year at Dayton. So.
Okay. Let's see. We got one more here that's queued up, and we'll get your other ones here before we go. Would you recommend a horizontal dipole or a vertical antenna with elevated radials? That's from Jorge.
Oh, that's a good one, Jorge. I recommend both. But if you, it comes down to if you're going to do a vertical, do them elevated radials, because then you only need like 4. If you ground mount it, then you're going to need like 32. And for the horizontal dipole, ideally to get it to get the best performance out of it, is if you can get it up at least a half wavelength of the antenna. So for 40 meters, you're going to want ideally get it up 60 feet. Well, that's not practical in a lot of cases, and that's where the vertical comes into play. So depending on your situation, I would, if you're asking about between the two, I'm kind of thinking the vertical might be your best bet, and go from there. But just remember, it's going to be, when you have elevated vertical and radials, there, the elevated radials, they're going to be up 6 or 8 feet off the ground, or 4 feet, whatever. Now you got other issues you got to deal with, and if it's in the middle of your backyard or wherever you're at, now you got to work around it, or someone's going to get clotheslined with the elevated radial. So
Okay.
look at your situation and go from there. But yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
I hope that helps. We'll be doing a little bit of overtime here after the show. So as you listen to the podcast, just know that we do these live shows and we record the podcast, and we've been hanging out a little bit of overtime for our YouTube subscribers. So we'll take some other questions there and we'll share those out as well. A couple things I want to get to before we wrap up the show. The Voice of America called this week, Steve. They've got extended hours. The museum will be open for the following. Now, we're talking about Dayton Xenia, the Hamvention, Thursday, May 19th from 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. And this is a place people are really telling me you got to go. And so if I got to go, you got to go. And people really, I know you've been there. They tell me you got to get there, you got to go. And I'm like, okay, I will go, I'll go. So if they're telling me, guys, then you got to go too. I don't know. We'll see how things go for me this year. But Saturday, May 21st from 1 to 9, Sunday the 22nd from 1 to 5. Admission is $10 at the door, and the amateur radio station is available to operate during these times. It's a short drive from Hamvention down Interstate 70 or Route 42 in Xenia. So there you go. Also want to let you know about Bioenno Power. Oh, if you're looking for a power solution, check out Bioenno Power, offering the best lithium phosphate batteries for your ham radios. Visit bioennopower.com. That's BIOENNOPOW.com. We want to also thank our new member, Richard, Kilo Zero Romeo Charlie Juliet. He signed up to be a sustaining member, Steve, and what that means is you get access to discounts. Not only are you supporting the content you enjoy and that you get value out of, but you're also opening things up like a coupon book. We have some businesses that work with us to give discounts on related products, and you can check that out at 100wattsandawire.com. A simple way to support the content you enjoy as you're here. Give us a thumbs up as a like. It tells the algorithm to share this with other folks that are like us and that we're here doing it. We're one of the smallest YouTube channels in the history of the world. So every little thing works, but we're not tripping on it. but the engagement is good for the algorithm. Sunday night, we have our net, 7 o'clock Central. We took last weekend off. Everybody had family in town. They were doing the Easter thing. We're back this week. We've got, I'll take this off here. I just like this song, so I'm going to let this play. Uncle Paul's Pickled Nuts is a sponsor. And Uncle Paul is actually, I'll bring up our boy Scotty too. Oh, the solo jumped when I went to that scene. I wonder why. That's interesting.
It's because
It's
my
the solo, man. It's the solo. So just deal with it, bitches. Deal with it. Listen to this. Here comes a bend, a string bend, baby. Oh! Uncle Paul's Pickled Nuts is a sponsor of us playing the song right now. He kicks off the show at 7 o'clock, and we'll be live streaming. All right, too much noodling is like masturbation, Scotty. It could have been a minute and a 20-second song. You had to make it like 15 minutes. It's like, I got to get through the whole thing. Wait a minute.
That's what guitar players do.
Just kidding. People love that song. Uncle Paul will kick things off 7 o'clock Central Time on our net, so check that out. Also, Don will be there as well from Minnesota on 20 meters. The handoff goes from Don to Sidecar Steve on 20 this weekend. Uncle Paul, I get to handle his pickled nuts and the residue and all the things left behind on 40 meters. Not so good.
All over the place.
Yeah, it's all over. These little white hairs are all over. And I gotta squeegee them away. The swimmers are still around, but I will take over at 8 o'clock Central Time on 40 meters, and Steve and I will run at least for that following hour. Everything is streamed out, so you're welcome to join us there. What did we miss, guys? We want to tell the people, find your people on Facebook and on YouTube. We're there for you in the digital realm. We talk about issues and topics on this show. Then we go and do and show you what it's like to work amateur radio and why it's cool on YouTube. Anything that we miss. I know we got some questions that we're going to pick up here maybe in our overtime. How are we doing on time? How many are there? There's a few questions. Who's going to Dayton? A 100 watts in a wire meetup. Let's talk about that in a little bit. Blah, 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 blah. Spike's got a question. Okay, keep your cues coming. We'll do them in the overtime. And if you want to stop in, we can do that as well. Let me say 73 to the good people who are not able to be here with us, but they are listening on their treadmills. They're out cutting grass now. It's that time of the year. People who are traveling and flying about listen to us, so we appreciate you, and that is why we are here. What did we miss, Steve? Anything?
I think we got it covered.
Okay. We didn't answer the question about the goldfish and why he has that. I think it's a friend thing. He has to have an energy in the bowl.
It was my inspiration. The little fishy gives me inspiration.
He's inspired by the captured fish and the little glass bowl and just the positive attitude of the goldfish. So, everybody's got their thing. That's what my mother said. Everybody needs something. And a little goldfish makes me hungry. Not for eating that, but goldfish. Scotty, did we miss anything? Thank you for coming here and bringing a fresh jar, which is actually inside. This is the other element. You do get gummies in your green room as part of your rider, but he also gets...
only green gummies.
This is the funny thing about Uncle Paul's nuts, pickled nuts, is that they don't fit in a traditional mason jar. He has to sell them by the barrel. So you have to buy a lot of nuts to get those, and there is some residue that it will get on your fingers. You will get a little residue on your mouth and on your fingers, but oh Lord, I think that's time to take it home, baby. Oh, we've done it again. We've got the sensors out. Uncle Paul's Nuts. Visit the store nearest you in Toms River, New Jersey. The most handsome man in his hair. His green room is something we should talk about too. Hairstylists, brushes and combs. And, how many mustache hairs does he have?
620.
Not
No,
one more.
No, one more, one less.
less.
No, one more unless we have a problem.
620.
620 is Uncle Paul's mustache.
All the products that go with that 620.
Oh, you're not fooling. You're not fooling. All right. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate you and have a good time every time we be together. See you on Sunday, 7 o'clock. We'll do the same thing. We'll have a stream. You'll be able to talk to us for a while, and you'll see multi-cameras of operators working your calls nationwide. We appreciate you. May the dogs run by your side. 7-3 to you, Steve. 7-3 to you, Scotty. And
7-3.
by all means, if you can, please try and stay above the noise. Take care now.
To join the 100 Watts in a Wire community, visit 100wattsandawire.com.